what's this? I thought, all right, anybody read this during the week? No? That's all right. That's all right. It's really interesting. I'm finding it really interesting what's coming out in here. I mean, this is a really important part of the scriptures where Jesus, it's the first recorded sermon, if you like, that Jesus gives. And you've got to remember some things, some context, that he gets his disciples together on the side of a mountain, which is really, it's called the Sermon on the Mount, but when you go there and have a look, it's like a hill. So maybe it should have been called the Sermon on the Hill, but there's just a slight slope where he spoke to his disciples, and there was other people listening as well. So the context is that this is talking to his disciples, and there's other people that can obviously hear, or if you like, even overhear what he's saying. So let's just get into the scripture because it's a really interesting one. We're starting with this bit. He says, "You've heard the commandment that says, you must not commit adultery." That's a pretty good commandment, isn't it? He says, "But I say, anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Who's in trouble? All of us. Excellent, thank you. Correct answer. So, if your eye, even your good eye, causes you to lust, gouge it out. Throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. Just when we thought, we were getting our head around the 10 Commandments and people were getting that, this Jesus bloke comes on the scene and just makes everything worse. Because you look at this and you could imagine sitting there and Jesus is up saying this stuff. What would you be thinking? What would you be thinking? Would you be thinking, mate, come on, you're just making it worse for us. We were just coping with what we had before. And now we got all this. And he says, even if your hand, even your stronger hand, which is you've either got a left or right strong hand, haven't you? Original says, your strong hand, if that causes you to sin, cut that off, throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. Now, there's all sorts of interpretations of these scriptures where we're going today. One of the funniest ones that I've heard is that somebody has interpreted this, and I hope you haven't been in a church where they've taught this, but they've taught what Jesus is talking about is pornography. Because you see it in your eye, and then you use your hand, and he's talking about masturbation and pornography. Can you believe it? That's one of the interpretations of this. And I've read, over studying for this, I've read some really crazy things that people interpret in the church that this is talking about. And what I think Jesus is saying, hardly anything of what a lot has been interpreted. But then let's look at this one. You've heard the commandment that says, you must not commit adultery. So does everybody know what adultery is? I thought I'd put the meaning in there just in case we didn't. Adultery is just this. It's voluntary sexual intercourse between a married person and a person who's not their spouse. That's what it is. The original commandment says you should not do that. Jesus says you should not do that, which is a good idea. But then Jesus says, I say anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So lust, what's lust? To have an intense desire or need, a crave, specifically to have a sexual urge. So who's ever had a sexual urge? Who's got kids? You don't put your hands up. But, it's really healthy to have sexual urges. And it's an absolutely normal part of life. The thing is, we've just got to direct those sexual urges in the right direction. Because, there's two courses. There's obviously, there's often two pendulum swings. You've got like the Victorian English side of things that, we don't talk about sex or sexuality. It's for childbearing only, and it's within this, And then you've got the whole other hedonistic side where, just do whatever makes you happy and do whatever pleases you. But obviously when you've got those swings, somewhere in the middle is the truth. But this thing, so I don't think lust in itself, but we've taken on the term lust as meaning almost a negative thing, haven't we? Like you think of lust and you think that's negative. But I'm sure it's healthy to have sexual urges, even an intense desire for a sexual urge, even to crave, that's fine. But we just need to direct that in the right place. If that didn't happen, there'd be a lot less kids. There'd be a lot less people on the planet. But then what Jesus is doing, if you take it apart, and I don't want to go through all of these yet because I've got to leave some messages for later on. But what Jesus is doing, he's got this, you have heard, but I say. All the way through this message, he's saying, you've heard, but I say. So you have heard, you must not murder. You must not commit adultery. A man can divorce his wife. You must not break your vows. The punishment must match the injury. Love your neighbour and hate your enemy. So if you read Matthew through 5 to 7, that's the you have heards that Jesus said. Because these are the commands that came, down through Moses, and these are the commands of old, and so you've heard all of these. And when we first started off, we said, well, can anyone keep the 10 Commandments? Well, the answer is yes. And you've got 5 stars there because we can do this. Maybe don't put hands up, but anybody in here murdered anybody? Can you be forgiven for murder? Yes. Anybody committed adultery? No hands, please. But, many of us would have 5 stars. There's more than 5 things there, but I haven't murdered, I haven't committed adultery, I haven't divorced my wife, even though I can. A man can divorce his wife, you just got to go through the legal proceedings and do it. Divorce is fine. You must not break your vows. Well, I don't know about that. I probably have, wedding vows. I don't think I have, but others, I don't know. I'm pretty good on that one. The punishment must match the injury. I believe in that. Like, somebody should get their just desserts, and if I've done something wrong, I should face up for that. Love your neighbour, hate your enemy. I can do that. And that's what the original law says. And that's what Jesus says. You've heard that it says this. So we can put up a hand pretty much and say, well, I pretty much have 5-star. I'm doing pretty good at life. I'm doing pretty good at what God tells me to do. And that's what he's doing. He's setting them up. In all these, he says, well, you've heard. And then you can imagine people sitting there, I haven't murdered, I haven't committed adultery, I'm doing pretty good. I've got 5 stars in this religious thing. And even when I have done something wrong, you know what? I've given the right sacrifice. So God's forgiven me because I've paid the sacrifice. The turtle doves. One time I even had to give a lamb. But I've paid my debts. So Jesus is setting them all up and he's saying, 5 stars for you guys, but then he says, I say. And here's what I say looks like my golf scorecard. Does anybody play golf? It pretty much looks like my golf scorecard. Get a par 4 and I've done it in 6. Never be unnecessarily angry with somebody. Oh, fail. Never call someone an idiot. Oh, fail, 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 fail. Never curse somebody. Oh, fail, fail. Never look lustfully at someone you're not married to. I'll pass that. No, fail. It's hard when your wife's in the room. That's why you wear sunglasses when you're young. But see what Jesus is doing. What he's doing, he's setting them up for failure, and when we're listening, he's setting us up for failure because he says, you guys thought you were doing well in this religious game. You guys thought you were worshipping, blah, 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 all your sacrifices, all your songs, all your raising your hands, all your giving your money, all of this. And as we go and see, it goes on and on and on. He attacks them all the way through. Not attacks them, he just shows them what he's really saying is, guys, you need me. And what he's saying is everything you guys have been doing on the outside, not just the Pharisees and all the C's and the Sadducees and all that. No, he's saying everybody, you've all been doing this worship stuff on the outside for other people to look at. You've got great synagogues, you've got great things, you've got great prayer meetings, you've got great this, you do your deeds in public, you do all that, you're doing really well. But guys, what he's saying is, it's not there that the Father's worried about, it's here. And he's starting to get at their hearts. And he's just starting, and this is amazing. I'd encourage you to keep reading this Matthew 5 to 7 and on, because this can change all of us. Because I'm reading and I think, oh God, I'm sorry. You're talking to me. Because I'm one of these outward praisers, outward worshippers. Look at me, even in the little things. You'll see, and if you don't see yourself there, you're probably a Pharisee or something. Because he gets to our heart, and he's getting at our heart. Remember when he said, I warn you guys, unless your righteousness is better than the righteousness of the teachers of the religious law and the Pharisees, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. Not everyone who calls out to me, says, Lord, 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 will enter the kingdom of heaven. Only those who actually do the will of my Father in heaven will enter. Leads us to a really important question that I think he's getting at, that a lot of us miss, and I've missed for a lot of my life. And I'm not going to answer the question, but I think it comes next, but I can't remember. Is staying out of hell the same as entering the kingdom of heaven? I've got an answer for myself. You don't have to tell me what your answer is, but is staying out of hell the same as entering the kingdom of heaven? I don't want you to answer it, but I want you to think about it. Because I think what Jesus is going on about here is he's trying to say, guys, it's not about right and wrong. It's not about whether you can or whether you can't. Because I've often come to these scriptures and I've had people ask me, well, can you divorce and can you remarry? And what if you commit adultery? And can you be forgiven? And what if you this and what if you that? And we've been asking the wrong questions. And Jesus is not answering the questions that people are asking. He's getting straight to the heart. And he's saying it's not about whether you can divorce your wife and get remarried and that. It's not about staying out of hell. Like, is it okay that I've done this? Will I still get into heaven? It's not about asking the questions, will I go to hell or will I go to heaven? That's not the deal that Jesus is on about. Jesus doesn't talk about that very much. Whether you go to heaven or hell, that's not the game. The game is what's in your heart. How do you treat your neighbour? There's something there if you're asking these questions. There's something wrong with your heart if you're asking some of these questions. I think Jesus is more saying, let's get back to the heart of the deal. And then he says, if your eye, even your good eye, if that causes you to lust, gouge it out and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. We looked, that was just what came to me. For real? Like, Jesus, people, you imagine people sitting there like, for real? We're all had it, they'd be saying. Like, you want us to go do that? That's, what? Is Jesus being literal here? Well, obviously not. Obviously not. And it's interesting when you take this, that's not, obviously not. Do you think Jesus wants anybody to rip their eye out? Of course he's not being literal. Somebody said, do you take the Bible literally? But when people ask me that, I say, well, not very much of it. People say, and they say, oh, don't you take the Bible literally? If they come at me like that, I just say, nah, I don't. Because I literally don't. Because he's not being literal there. And then when you go through the other things and apply it to all of that, think about the things that he says, and then we realise he's not being so literal. It makes it much easier. This guy here, Origen of Alexandria, he took this scripture. He says, this is Matthew 19:12. He read this. There are some eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb, and there are some eunuchs. Everybody know what a eunuch is? Somebody who hasn't got no testicles. A bloke without testicles. He says, so there's some from their mother's womb, they're born that way. There's some were made that way by men. Adrian's offered, actually. He's got a castration machine. Anybody wants to be made one by men. Apparently Adrian will do it for you. So there's those ones. I don't even think there's a fee. Yeah. But then he read, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. So this bloke, Origen, he went and castrated himself. Why? Because he read part of the Bible literally that was never supposed to be read literally like that. And you see, this guy could have gouged his eye out because he was worried about the same thing, because this guy taught nuns. And he was worried because he was getting a little bit aroused by the nuns, I think, if that's possible. And so he was worried he was worried teaching these girls. I mean, if they're the only girls you got. But he was worried because I've read the history of this, and there's another guy, Eusebius, who ripped into this guy and said, basically, you're an idiot. Oh, so then he's going to hell because he's called him an idiot. It gets complicated, doesn't it? Pretty sure it was Eusebius. The theologians online can correct me, send me an email and correct me if I'm wrong. But so I read the history of this guy. He took that literally. But I love the New Living Translation. I think they translated that to save the rest of us. Some are born eunuchs, some have been made eunuchs by others, and some choose not to marry. So let's go there. So isn't that a lot better? Thank God for new translations. But you see, that wasn't literal. And a lot of this stuff, if your hand, even your strong hand, causes you to sin, you're there working in the workshop thinking, I'm always sinning with this hand. The temptation is, Jesus says, cut it off with a saw, because that'll stop, won't it? Throw it away. Better if you lose one part of your body than your whole body. But I thought about this, and you know what the problem would be? If this hand is causing me to sin and I go, guess what's going to happen? This one's going to start causing me to sin. What am I going to do then? Then I'll learn to use my feet, whatever. Cut them off. Is Jesus being literal? No. Of course he's not being literal. But what's he doing? He's exaggerating. It's called something in... Who's an English teacher? We haven't got... Thank you. Hyperbole. It's called a hyperbole, which is an outrageous exaggeration to get your attention. So what Jesus is saying is, guys, this is important stuff in the kingdom. This is not about whether you go to heaven or hell. This is about whether you guys want to live in my kingdom. This is about whether you guys want to walk with the Son of God and live in his kingdom and have Holy Spirit in your heart guiding your life. This is not about whether you go to heaven or hell. There's other people worrying about whether they go to heaven or hell, and they're saying, well, if I don't murder, 1 star. If I don't commit adultery, another star. If I don't do this, another star. And they're clocking up, and well done, you made your way. But this is something different. This is on another level. Jesus is now taking these people and say, in my kingdom, because he's introducing his kingdom, in my kingdom, these laws, I haven't done away with any of them. Not one jot, not one tittle. These laws are still as they come down from your forefathers. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not murder. You shall not have adultery with, what are the other ones? You shall not steal. You shall not do all of those things. He says they're legit. They're legit laws. But he's saying, hey, if you want to walk in my kingdom, things are going to go a little bit more. We're going to look not just at what's on the outside. I want your hearts. I want your hearts. And when you start living by your heart, the outside takes care of itself and you don't worry about that stuff anymore. I don't want to, because we need reinforcement. We need to be told again and again and again. So I will, skip to the chase and give you the end and all that, and I'll do it again another time. But what did Jesus say in the end? He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your strength, everything. Love your neighbour as yourself, and then you'll fulfill all of this stuff. You don't have to worry about, can I divorce my wife? Yes, you can divorce your wife. Of course you can. It's legal. You just got to get the right stuff done, pay the money, give the religious guy the stuff, give the court the guy the stuff, and you can divorce your wife and get a new one. But Jesus says, guys, it's not about that. What's in your heart? Why do you want to divorce your wife? Jesus goes straight to here. He's teaching us this principle. What he's teaching us is small things lead to bigger things. I think, is that a superannuation? Small sins lead to bigger sins. 1 + 1 no longer equals 2, it equals 3 once you start to go down the line of, once you've done one thing, it's easier to do a second thing, and then the third thing becomes much easier. And this is the principle he's teaching. Not loving our neighbour is step one. And this is going down, I did this, it's going down from the light into the darkness. Not loving your neighbour, that's step one. Once you can not love your neighbour, you can go to step two. You can start actually hating him in your heart. Then you can easily go to step three. Once you have learnt to hate him in your heart because you don't like him, you don't love him, then you hate him, then you can start taking revenge on him. You know, leave your rubbish bin in front of his driveway or something, I don't know. Whatever. But then this is a step downwards. And it can get that bad you think, no, I really hate the guy, I'm going to put a bomb under his car or whatever, I don't know. Cut his brake lines. But this happens. We laugh, but this is what happens in people's hearts. This is literally what happens. They do this to their spouses, some people. They take their life. We've watched some of those crime shows. It's just creepy. What people will do, they have an adulterous relationship and then they get rid of their wife. I saw one the other day. It was shocking. But this is how it starts. And then you end up in hell. And Jesus is not talking about you end up in literal hell. He says your life is ruined. This is what he's talking about. He's not talking about heaven and hell here. He's talking about how to have a good life now. I better move on. This is how it happens. You look at somebody. That's okay. You're allowed to look at people, okay? Okay, you're allowed to look at people. But then if you start thinking about them lustfully, there's all sorts of stupid ideas in this, like, you've got 2 seconds and then you've got to stop, otherwise it's sin, like, whatever. Draw the line. You know where the line is for you, okay? Thinking about them lustfully. Well, we've all done that, but then you need to stop. Unless they're your wife, and then keep going. Or if they're your husband, and then keep going. Just keep going, don't stop. Then you touch them with your hand. This happens. Has anyone worked in an office? And been to an office Christmas party? This happens. You see it on TV. Some guy brushed his hand past the buttocks of another woman or something, and now he's up for assault, sexual charges or whatever. Yeah, whatever. But this is how it happens. They've worked it out, obviously. So you look at someone, you think about them lustfully, you touch them with your hand, next minute, you're in the closet with them in the office or whatever. Adultery. What does it lead to? It doesn't lead you to hell, because you can be forgiven for adultery, can you not? Absolutely, but I'll tell you what it will definitely lead you to, this. Late one afternoon, after his midday rest, David got out of bed. He was walking on the roof of the palace, and as he looked out over the city, he noticed with his eyes, look at where Jesus is going with this, the blue bits. He noticed with his eyes a woman of unusual beauty taking a bath. Now, is he allowed to look? Well, she's there having a bath. Of course he's allowed to have a look. He sent someone to, but this is where it all goes. So he obviously looked at her with a bit of lust, because he sent someone to find out who she was. So he's thinking about it. He starts thinking, and he's told, she's Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah. What should he have done there? Oh, okay. Married chick. Good-looking married chick. Lucky bloke. That should have been the end of it. No, he sent someone to find out, wife. Then David sent his messengers to get her. So he's talking to other people about it. Go get that chick. And when she came to the palace, handsies get on her. Because handsies get on her. Do you think he probably took her by the hand? Come with me. I've got a really sweet pad. Bar fridge, everything. You imagine, in the palace. Came to the palace with her hands, and he slept with her. That doesn't mean like, because that would be okay, not so bad. Adultery. So you see where Jesus says, if your eyes are causing you, stop it. If your hands are causing you, stop it, because you're getting really close to hell. You're getting really close to your life being on the rubbish dump. Remember I brought out before that hell in here is Gehenna, which is the rubbish dump of Jerusalem, which is where it's the tip. It's where the dogs are snarling. It's where sulfur is burning all the time. It's where later on they got this idea of what hell was like. But whatever, we won't go there now. But your life will turn to hell. An evil Man is held captive by his own sins. They are ropes that catch and hold him. That's what Proverbs 5:22 says. This is a verse from the Babylonian Talmud. Who knows what the Babylonian Talmud is? The Talmud is a commentary on the Mishnah. So it's the Jewish writings. It says, at first the evil inclination is like the thread of a spider's web, and in the end it's like the ropes of a wagon. You know, say spider web is one of the strongest things on the planet, like one strand. It's like sticky tape. My wife used to fix everything with sticky tape. Like she'd say, can we use sticky tape? And I was like, oh, that's when we were first married. Can we fix? She'd say, hun, can you fix this? I said, oh, I don't know. Can you use sticky tape? She'd say. But she knew what sticky tape, the strength of sticky tape. Like I use that grey tape on my car, and that should have a rating as how much it holds. You know, you put something on your roof racks and wrap that grey tape around it, it won't come off. And sticky tape, try it. Be careful, but you know, do a few things around your hand with sticky tape, you won't get out. And it's like spiderweb. See what Jesus is teaching this principle again. Small sins lead to bigger sin. It's all right getting one spider web wrapped around you. You know, it's all right you look that once and have a little lustful thought. That's not you're gonna break out of that. But if you keep doing that, every time you see, as a bloke I can talk, I do think women are as bad, if not worse, but yeah. All right, so let's take the women's side. Women, if you look at a bloke, like, you know, the footballers with the shorts and all that, you know, if you girls are looking at that, and I'm suspect of women that watch footy, if you just keep looking at that, it's like, it can be like wrapping yourself in spiderweb. To the point, you know, where your conscience is seared and eventually, there's nothing wrong with that. Their shorts should be shorter and tighter. You know, you can convince yourselves. But this is all in the Word of God. So many people out there are missing all of this. Like, it's such good stuff. Proverbs 5:15, 5:1-15. It's a warning against adultery. You know how I said big things, little things lead to bigger things? Listen to this. This is so laid out and so practical and so real. My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen carefully to my wise counsel. Then you will show discernment, and your lips will express what you've learnt. So you'll pass it on to others. The lips of an immoral woman are as sweet as honey. Her mouth is smoother than oil, but in the end she's as bitter as poison, as dangerous as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps lead straight to the grave. Remember that picture? Coming from light, her stepping down into darkness, into the grave. She cares nothing about the path to life. She staggers down a crooked trail, and she doesn't realise it. So now, my sons, listen to me. Never stray from what I'm about to say. And this is advice to young men in particular it was written for, but it's advice to all of us. Never forget this. Stay away from her. And this is, look, yes, her, but this is him as well. We can just flip it. And you know, if you're a woman, stay away from him, because there's immoral men as well. Did you know that? Yeah. Stay away from him or her. Do not go near the door of his or her house. If you do, you will lose your honour and will lose to merciless people all you've achieved. Where? Here and now, on earth, in time. Because strangers will consume your wealth. I just thought of something I'd never seen here before. You know the people that get trapped in... I'll read it first. Strangers will consume your wealth, and someone else will enjoy the fruit of your labour. What does that mean? It means all your savings and everything is going to get swallowed up and taken away. And in the end, you'll groan in anguish when disease consumes your body. That's highly likely as well. You're going to catch something. And you'll say, how I hated discipline. If only I had ignored all the warnings. I had not. That's important. If only I had not ignored all the warnings. Why didn't I listen to my teachers? Why didn't I pay attention to my instructors? I've come to the brink of utter ruin. And now, he saves this for last. Now I must face public disgrace. You know, anyone who's been caught in sexual immorality, whether it's adultery, whatever, whether it's like pornography, whether it's, you know, if people get caught and it becomes public, it's one of the worst things. And that's why he puts it here last. See, Jesus, what was it, Jeff? Hyperbole. Jesus' hyperbole is out of love and concern for his disciples. He's saying, guys, this is so bad. Do anything to stop this. Stop it. Stop this in its tracks. This will kill you. This will leave you on the rubbish dump of life. This will give you public disgrace. This will empty your wallet and purse. This will lose your house. And I know people that have just through their eyes on a computer screen have given money to people overseas who they think is a beautiful, gorgeous woman, but particularly the people I know. They've given money to them because they've fallen for their eyes and all this sort of stuff, and it's probably some fat African guy, and it's not a gorgeous woman at all, and just making him rich over there, losing their everything. This is real. The Bible is real. The advice is real. And people get to the end and they say exactly that. Why didn't I listen? Why didn't I listen? Why didn't I listen? You told me. They told me. The Bible says it. Why didn't I listen? This is real stuff. This is where the rubber meets the road. And this, I'm hoping it's for only people online, but it could be, look, I've lived long enough and seen enough to know that there could be people in here. You need to stop looking at somebody. Like, this is the time. This is the thin, skinny spiderweb time. It might already be, you might have already had a few wraps around of the spiderweb and it might be hard, but this is the time, because when is the time to get out? When David's on the roof and he saw that woman, when he looked at her, that's the time to get out. And then who is it? Uriah's wife. Uriah's what? Uriah's wife. Oh, bugger. That's the time to get out. The time to get out is now. See, he went on and on and on and on and on and on. And now what do we know him for? It's one of the things we know him for. And it's not the fear of public humiliation that should stop us. It's wanting to be a citizen of the kingdom of heaven that should stop us. It's wanting to please our Father that should stop us. It's signing up for service as a soldier in the kingdom of God. There's so many things that should stop us before public humiliation, before losing all of our money, before getting found out should stop us, because Jesus wants this. Is there someone you need to stop thinking about? And the way you do that is ask God for help every time that person comes to mind. Say, oh Lord Jesus, please help me to stop thinking about this person. It works. I've learnt this thing that, because I've done this for people that I had a real issue with because they hurt me bad. So I used to think about them. I said, Lord, I choose to forgive them. Help me to forget. Help me to forgive. Help me to forgive. I just used to pray, Lord, help me to forgive. And I think the devil got sick of throwing them in front of me all the time, because every time they had these thoughts, I'd say, Lord, forgive. And do you know what happened? I'd say, Lord, I want to forgive them. Help me forgive them. I started out like that. Lord, I want to forgive them. Help me forgive them. So every time Lord, I want to forgive them. Help me forgive them. It turned to, Lord, bless them. I'm forgiving them. Which turned to, I don't think about them ever anymore, because I've forgiven them. Forgiveness is a journey. It's not a single prayer. It's a continual, Lord, help me to forgive. And like it's the first thing is, Lord, I want to forgive. I don't know how. Help me. And then you go from there. This might be the same for somebody. Is there someone you need to stop thinking about? But they mean so much to me. Whatever. Lord, help me because I know it's the right thing. I'm in your kingdom now. I want to be a kingdom citizen. Kingdom people don't think like I'm thinking. There's more for me than this. Is there a number you need to delete from your phone? Is there a practical thing you need to do? Do it. Do it. It's worth doing it. For your sake and for their sake. The immunisation against adultery. This is my favourite bit of the message. The immunisation against adultery. If you're married, drink water from your own well. Share your love only with your wife/husband. Why spill the water of your springs in the streets, having sex with just anybody? I hope there's nobody like that here. You should reserve it for yourselves, confined to your marriage. Never share it with strangers. Let your wife be a fountain of blessing for you. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. She's a loving deer, a graceful doe. Let her breasts satisfy you always. That's probably my favourite bit. Working up. Do you want to go out for dinner tonight, my love? Working something up here. May you always be captivated by her love. And like I say, put /his in there. This is important. I don't want to brag, but we work on our marriage. I should have brought some of the books that we've got, good Christian books. We've got a really good book that's called, I'll bring it next week, it's called, what's it called? Yes, Love and Respect. And there's another one, Red Hot Monogamy. Red Hot Monogamy. It says the best love life, the best sex life is in a monogamous relationship between a husband and wife. It's called Red Hot Monogamy. It's fantastic. Fantastic book. But you see, that's what the world doesn't know. The world teaches you, the world would teach you you're missing out, this and that, whatever, but who's that talking? It's, it's not God, it's the other side. Down to, we're nearly finishing, I think. So the muso should come and save me before I say something worse. How do we put it into practicality? How do we put it into practicality? Could you see, because Jesus says, if your eyes cause you to sin, and hang on, I didn't throw this in because I forgot. See, what the old law looks at is it's in a box, and it says, all right, stay in here, and you'll be okay. It says, do not murder, do not commit adultery, stay in the box, and you'll be okay, right? That's the sort of law. And Jesus saying, you have heard it was said, stay in the box. But then what Jesus says, but what I say to you is think outside the box. So he says, the law says don't commit adultery. But you know what Jesus is trying to get into our heart? Not just don't commit adultery. How can you love your husband more? How can you love your wife more? What's in your heart? And you look at it, you go read it again, and Jesus is being expansive. He's saying this kingdom is forever growing, forever expanding. We should forever be learning ways to love more. We should forever be learning ways to care more. We should be ever learning ways to change more of our heart. And there's just some practical things. Don't just look at it, okay, I'm not committing adultery. Okay, I don't need to delete anybody's phone number from my phone. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. No. Jesus would say, well, how can you make your situation even bigger, even better? I tell you, there's rewards in it. There's rewards here and now. We're talking about, we were talking about heaven on earth before. There's parts of heaven that are on earth now. You know, we can have some heaven on earth now. There's nothing wrong with that. Could you look at your husband or wife more than you do now? You know, could you take the time? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with anybody's marriage, but, you know, we get into our routines, don't we? You know, just the little things. Like just the little things. Like one thing we do, I'll never leave. I did this morning, didn't I? I left without, because I got in the car and drove away with Josiah, but sorry, yeah, it's your fault. I'll never leave the house without giving mine a kiss. How many times have I ever? Never, do I? Generally. There's something wrong if I do. Just the little things. What can you do more? Because Jesus is asking for more. To be a kingdom person, Jesus says, think about ways to do it more. You've heard it said, but I say, do it more. Could you think about your husband or your wife more? And could you touch your husband or your wife more? Those little things. I remember went away for, I think it was only a week. Went away for a week on a work thing. And I had the weirdest experience to come home. We were actually at our first day, we were at our daughters and son-in-laws. And so we couldn't get real good touching going on. So, yeah. But I remember just brushed against Mon in the kitchen. And it's like, I hadn't touched anybody for a week because I was at a work thing. And it was just that, just that sensation of touching someone that you love. It means a lot. And it doesn't stop just because you get married. It doesn't stop because you've been married for 50 years or however long. I'm sort of bragging a bit, but that's okay. That's cool sometimes. I like doing that. We get comments because we walk hand in hand. And we get, some lady told us, I love watching you two walk down the beaches. What? Why? You weirdo. Because you're always holding hands. She said, nobody holds hands nowadays. And we notice that we walk in the city or whatever, we hold hands while we're walking, and I'm thinking, nobody walks hands. I watch people walk around here, and the guy's like 6 foot in front of his wife, and I'm thinking, what the heck is wrong with you? I said, my heart just says, really? Really? This is not about whether you're going to... You read this more. This is not so much about whether we're going to heaven or hell. We get all twisted up about, who's going to heaven, who's going to hell. That'll sort out in the wash. Jesus is saying, love God. Love your neighbour as yourself. Love the one you've found to live with, your best friend. And just work on it more and more and more. This journey never ends of loving. Could you love your husband or your wife more? Stretch yourself. See if you can. Do you think Jesus would be happy if you put some effort into seeing if you could love your spouse more? I reckon he would be. And another one, are you a fountain of blessing for your husband or your wife? I'm sure we can all do a better job at being a fountain of blessing. That's what it's about.